In 2023, I read over 200 books. I read some great, fantastic, incredible books that I will remember forever because they were so amazing. And I also read some books that I wish I had never read. This video is going to focus on the latter. These aren't going to be in any particular order. And to make this video a little more fun, I put emojis with each book that encapsulated how I felt while reading it. I would also like to add that I do have a video coming out that's going to be the opposite of this with the best books I read in 2023, sometime in early January, hopefully. That's what I'm striving for. I'm going to try my best. Without further ado, my 1 and 2 star reads of 2023. My first one, Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. I don't like cheating in books. It makes it hard for me to root for the characters and the relationship, and the heroine of this book spent her time going after a guy with a girlfriend. So, also is insta love. Hate that too. I used a sleeping emoji here because if I wasn't irritated with this book and its characters, I was bored by it. So bored that I could have fallen asleep. There wasn't enough happening to keep me engaged. The characters bored me, the romance bored me, everything bored me. The Devil's Own Duke by Lenora Bell. I DNF'd this one. It was really repetitive. The heroine annoyed me with how judgmental she was. I felt indifferent towards the hero, and I felt indifferent towards most of it, honestly. This book was making me feel almost nothing, not towards the romance, not towards the character, besides some mild irritation, not towards the story. And if you're feeling absolutely nothing while reading a book, I feel like you should probably DNF, because what's the point? If you're indifferent to it all, you know, books are supposed to make you feel something. This is my opinion. I will say, though, that out of all the books here, this is one of the more tolerable ones. I didn't like it, but I didn't think it was completely terrible either. Reveal Me by Tada Mafi. This is one of the Shatter Me novellas. It's from Kenji's point of view, and I thought that meant the book would be a fun time because he's the goofy, fun character, but it was not a fun time. Kenji was like a different person in this. He was so mean and irritable, and I didn't like the way he treated Nazira. I was super disappointed with this because I loved Kenji's side character, but as a main character, he's just not it. The Rebound by Winter Renshaw. This is Lovers, Enemies to Lovers, and Second Chance. And I usually eat those tropes up, but not this time. Because the reason they broke up was so stupid. Everything could have been solved with a single mature conversation, but the hero refused to speak to the heroine for 10 years. I was so fed up with this plot, because if their relationship was that good to begin with, you'd think they'd be able to have one conversation and talk about what broke them apart, but no. It was also very clear to me that the heroine cared for and loved the hero a lot more than he did her. In the adult years, it felt like he was just using her for her body because he only ever talked about how much he loved her physical attributes and never her personality or her values or anything like that. Damaged by Natasha Knight. This book belongs more to the horror genre than it does the romance genre. I hated the romance in this book. The hero straight up abuses the heroine. He isolates her. He physically harms her. He forces her to do sexual stuff she doesn't want to do. He lies to her constantly. The heroine was crying in like every other chapter, and I just felt bad for her the entire time. Also, she's only 18, and he's like this big, powerful guy in the mafia, so there was a huge power imbalance that made me really uncomfortable. I usually eat up age gap romances, but when there's a huge power imbalance like this, it's just uncomfortable. Hero by Samantha Young. I can summarize this whole book in a couple sentences. They have sex, he says it means nothing, repeat. That's literally the entire plot of the book, or lack of plot, I guess. I didn't like how this book pushed the notion that it's a woman's responsibility to save a man either. That really bothered me. The hero would act like a jerk, and the heroine would get blamed by the side characters for not trying hard enough with him, even though she tried to pursue a relationship with him, and he just kept saying he didn't want anything of the sort. She would tell him she loved him, and he would respond by saying he doesn't love her back. And the side characters would encourage her to have like no self-respect or backbone. Why should she have to keep pursuing him when he says these things to her? And there are plenty of other guys who would be happy to have her. It's not her job to fix a fully grown man and to like wait around for him to make up his mind. I didn't like the double standards either. When Kayan would get upset, and he always was because he's like this grumpy guy, that was fine by everyone. No one had a problem with it. But the second Alexa would get rightfully pissed, people would tell her to get over it. Someone literally described her as acting ugly because she was mad at him for something, even though she had every right to be. She would get vilified for being mad, basically. And I don't like how the men in this book could get mad, but the women were expected to be passive and peaceful and forgiving at all times. To emphasize this point, at one point I remember she goes through something traumatizing, and people are telling her not to react because it'll escalate Kane's worry. I'm sorry, respectfully, who cares about him? She just went through something terrible and traumatic, and she's allowed to react to that. I hate how she was forced to bottle up her feelings for his sake. Bully by Penelope Douglas. There is so much girl on girl hate in this book, every girl who wears heels and revealing clothing is a trashy slut in Tate's eyes. The guy they were fighting over also, the girls always competing in this book, and they were fighting over Jared, who is the worst. They could all do so much better than him. Why are they fighting over a guy who acts like he doesn't care about any of them? I just hated how all girls in this were portrayed as desperate. Every girl that wasn't Tate was a walking, talking stereotype. All they cared about was makeup, shopping, and boys. Not Tate, though. She's not like the other girls. She likes cars, unlike the other girls who don't know a car engine from a steering wheel. It's just so ridiculous the way girls were depicted. And also, after Jared and Tate have sex for the first time, he said she was truly his because she was a virgin. It was just so icky, as if not being a virgin would taint her somehow. And of course, this rule only applies to women because Jared has had lots and lots of sex and he's still desirable to everyone. The Zodiac Academy The Awakening by Caroline Peckham and Suzanne Valenti. This is my most recent one-star read. There is so much sexual harassment in this book and at the hands of the love interests. I've read dark romances with Dubcon before and enjoyed them, but there was so much of it in this book that I was just disgusted and I couldn't get on board with any of the ships. Well, okay, maybe that's not true. I'm kind of intrigued by Darcy and Orion. Maybe I could ship them in the future if I continue the series, but not any of the other romances. Almost every man in this book assaults the heroines at one point, even the teachers. It also pushes the idea that girls secretly want it if the guy's attractive. And like with Bully, all the girls are portrayed as desperate for these jerk heroes because they're hot, as if that somehow makes their behavior okay. And the heroes that we're supposed to root for talk to and treat all the women in this book terribly. They love humiliating women. Lots of grammatical errors also. Burn for You by J.T. Gessinger. I didn't like the writing personally. It'll work for some people, it didn't work for me. There was an excessive amount of outlandish similes and metaphors that kept pulling me out of the story, and an excessive amount of exclamation points, which was just really insufferable. When I was reading it, why was everyone yelling in my head? Like, it was just so annoying to read. Because they would be talking about the weather or something, and there would be an exclamation point, and then in my head, I'd be like shouting about the weather, and it was driving me nuts. I DNF'd the book, and they were also shouting in internal monologues. Like, it was just, I don't know, I didn't like it. That would have given it a 2-star rating, though. I bumped it down to a 1, though, because the black characters in this book are portrayed extremely stereotypically, very problematically. Empire of Desire by Rena Kent. The dialogue in this book drove me crazy. Everything was repeated like 3 times because the hero would say something, and then the heroine would be like, what? Every single time they talked. It was so annoying. It drove me wild. I could not. I DNF'd because the dialogue was so insufferable and repetitive, and the heroine was supposed to be like naive, which is why she kept like saying what after he would say something shocking, but like, oh my goodness, it was so annoying to just reread what I just read. Like, he would have to say something 3 times, and it was so annoying. Like, I wanted to move on with the conversation. It was just, it drove me wild. Really annoying. The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. I originally rated this a 3-star, but then I changed it to a 2 because I didn't like any of the characters besides the dead one, and the plot twist made no sense. I don't know what possessed me to give this a 3-star in the first place. I was being way too generous with that. I feel like it's because with all the hype it gets and the high rating on Goodreads, I was trying to force myself to like it. I felt like I was supposed to like it, and that I was the problem or something, so I was trying to justify all the high ratings, which obviously everyone who likes it is totally valid in that. I just didn't like it, and I was trying to force myself to because of everyone else did, and I felt like I was wrong or something, but if I'm gonna be honest with myself, I didn't like it, and that's okay. I don't always have to agree with the majority. A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime by Monica Murphy. This book was rough. There was a huge emphasis on girls' virginity, and there was a bunch of purity culture crap. When he has sex with her, he takes her purity ring and puts it on a necklace because she now belongs to him. Like, that, ew, that's so disgusting. And the female main character is infantilized. Like, she loves lollipops, she wears Mary Janes and bows in her hair, she has little girl socks. And obviously, adults can suck on lollipops, but when it's all these things put together, it really made it seem like the author was making a conscious effort to make Ren seem like a little girl, which is super gross, especially considering this book is all about sex. It's also way too long. The last 5 chapters were all cliche fluff, and I was bored out of my mind. Beautiful Disaster by Jamie McGuire. This book disgusted me like no other. There's so much slut shaming, but almost exclusively directed at women. Travis, the hero, he sleeps around a ton and gets barely any flack for it, but the women who sleep with him are they're all sluts and bimbos. In fact, any lady who isn't the main character or her best friend is a slutty skank whose middle name is whore. Travis shames the women he sleeps with for sleeping with him, which is wild, the hypocrisy. He talks about how the heroine is better than them because she doesn't sleep around like those skanks do. This is language from the book, by the way. I would never talk about women in this derogatory way. I'm trying to emphasize how badly this book talks about women. At one point, there's a girl who's sitting on Travis's lap and he stands up and just lets her fall to the floor. I think that one scene encapsulates how much he respects women perfectly. The heroine is a virgin, of course, and she's not like the other girls. There's literally a quote in here where Travis talks about how she's the first girl who isn't flustered by him or tries to get his attention. Please be so for real, Travis, because he's such a catch. Are you kidding me? All the other girls are just foaming at the mouth for him. Be so for real. I could not. Also, his nickname for his pidge, which was one of the least cute sounding nicknames I've ever heard, freaking drew me, honestly. The fact that this was nominated for what was it, the best young adult fiction in the Goodreads Awards, I believe. Wild. Wild. Do not give this book to your kids. I'm trying to think if I have anything else to say about this. There was so much. Maybe I should just move on before I go down a rabbit hole. House of Roots and Ruin by Erin A. Craig. This book made me want to bash my head against a wall because every possible wrong decision the main character could make, she made. This book is also way too long. Half of what was written was just for vibes and didn't need to be included at all because it amounted to nothing. It had no significance on the plot whatsoever. Tell me why we read about peacocks on every other page for them to have absolutely nothing to do with anything at the end. I feel like this book was a huge waste of time. What was the point of anything? The romance was also bland. There was nothing here. Some of the writing was good, but I didn't like it. The Savage Wild by Roxy Noor. This book made me so angry, as you can see by the emoji, the swearing emoji. That's how I felt. I despised the hero of this novel. He's one of the worst guys in a romance novel ever. He's a cheater, for one thing. And this is a second chance romance. The thing he did to her that caused their falling out is so despicable. I'm just going to tell you. You know what? I'm just going to tell you. If you don't want to know, move on to the next book because this is a spoiler. I'm going to start spoiling in 3, 2, 1. He hooked up an audio of her moaning while he ate her out at prom to humiliate her. Yep. Not only did he humiliate the heroine, but he also embarrassed his girlfriend at the time because now everyone knows she's been cheated on. So romantic, right? If he had good character development, and I'm talking the most drastic change in personality, then I might have been willing to forgive him, but he's still the same person he was in high school. He still cheats, he still leads women on, he still disrespects and demeans women when he decides he's done with them, and he's just a straight up terrible person, especially when he's mad. If you do something to upset Wilder, he will go out of his way to make you cry and hurt you. When Imogen and him were fighting, he would intentionally make her cry, and he would get pleasure out of it. I gave this book a very generous 2-star rating because the survival stuff was very well researched and well written, but that's about the only thing I liked about this, and I think all women need to stay far, far away from Wilder. Falling for Declan by Tracy Lorraine. You look at this booger and think, did I say booger? Why did that come out of my mouth? I don't know what came over me. I don't know why I'm thinking about boogers. I wasn't. I don't know what just happened. Okay. I was trying to say, when you look at this cover, you think, wow, that's so cute. The inside must be just as cute. You know that audio? But no. You would be wrong. Because we have yet another hero who shames women for sleeping around when he himself sleeps around. And just to be clear, I'm not shaming men for sleeping around either. I do not shame anyone for what they do with their own bodies. That's none of my business. But it blows my mind when men who sleep around shame women for doing the same thing. It's just hypocritical. And this guy did not respect the women he slept with at all. He referred to one girl he was sleeping with as the B word. He said he didn't care about her or her problems and called her easy, as if he himself is not also sleeping around. And there's a quote in here where he talks about how he doesn't like women. He only likes screwing them. So he only values women for their bodies, is what he's saying. And one time when Nicole was talking to him, he was just staring at her boobs instead of her face, and, actually listening to her. And I think that really goes to show how much he respects the heroine. And his friends are just as bad as he is. They were having locker room talk about Nicole in front of Nicole. Locker room talk is already bad enough when it's in private, just between the boys, but to talk about a girl like that in front of her and make her uncomfortable, you're disgusting. Speaking of Nicole, she's also a big fat hypocrite. There was one scene she stripped at a bar, and that was fine. No one had a problem with it. Neither do I, for that matter. That's okay, party it up. But then she saw a girl wearing a short skirt, and she felt the need to internally shame her for it. Like, I don't know. I hate the hypocrisy. Like, neither action is bad. I don't know. I hate women hating on women. I feel like this book needs a big red X on the cover to drive people away from it. Do not be fooled by the sweet little flowers and pretty font. This is not a cute story with fluffy characters. In 5 Years by Rebecca Searle, that emoji is perfect for this. There were 3 romances in this book, and none of them were good. They were all flat. All of them were underdeveloped and boring. No one had any personality besides the best friend. When the main character winds up in an alternate reality, the first thing she does is cheat on her fiance. And it's just, like I said, it's hard for me to root for characters that cheat. Some authors do a really good job of making the characters still sympathetic, like Taylor Jenkins Reid. A lot of her characters are cheaters, and I still like them, and I still feel sympathy towards them. But this character, no. She also does something to betray her best friend near the end of the book that really pissed me off. You know what? I'm just gonna tell you. I'm spilling the beans in 3, 2, 1. Go, get out of here. Go to the next book if you don't want to hear it. Her best friend buys her an apartment in New York, so it's expensive. And she's really ill, so she can't take her to the apartment, so she sends her fiance to go to the apartment with her. And they go, and they end up sleeping together in the apartment that her best friend just bought for her. I was sick to my stomach reading that. Like, your friend really did all that for you to sleep with her fiance? Oh my gosh, I was so upset. This book made me realize that the best friend's boyfriend trope is not for me, so at least I learned something while reading this. It wasn't totally useless. It's also an open ending, which I hate. This last one, My Fault by Mercedes Ron. It's crazy to me that there are so many phenomenal books out there, and this is the one that gets a movie? I have so many issues with this book, the first one being Noah, the heroine. She is bratty and entitled, and I couldn't stand her point of view. She's living in a billionaire's mansion, and she finds time to complain about it on every single page. Her mom buys her clothes at one point, she's like, as if I don't have enough already. Like, how about be grateful? How about say thank you, Mom? Just thought, thanks for thinking of me, Mom. I don't know. Anything. Just be grateful. And she's also stupid, because only stupid people would antagonize a known gang leader. And of course, she's not like the other girls because she doesn't wear makeup or throw herself at Nicholas, and she dresses modestly, while the other girls dress like strippers. I kid you not, Noah thought that to herself at one point. I didn't like the hero Nicholas either. He's a misogynist. That's really all you need to know about him. Oh, also, there was a scene, she gets drugged at one point and asks him what happened to her the night before because she doesn't remember, and he decides that would be the perfect time to taunt her. Like, she asks him what happened, and he's like, oh, I did it all, or something like that. Like, he jokes about doing stuff to her while she was drugged and unconscious. It's just so disgusting. And his friends are also gross, and they leer at her when her clothes get wet. It was just icky. It's also very repetitive. They would have the same conversation 5 times and then go back on their word and have the same conversation again. It's a miracle I managed to finish this book. I finished this book, and you finished this video, because this is the last book I had for you today. Whoop whoop! Congrats, you've made it to the end! If you've managed to stick around for the entire thing, just know that I love and appreciate you. Thanks so much for listening to me angry rant. If you've read any of these books, let me know. Comment down below your opinions, whether you agree or disagree. It doesn't bother me. Everyone has their own opinions, and I'm open to hearing them. And let me know what some of your least favorite reads from this year were. Okay, bye-bye. Have a happy new year.